Welcome, friends, to another Wolff Responds. I call this one Recession with question marks. There's a lot of talk these days about a recession looming here in the United States, with expectations that it could hit this year or next year. And I want to answer the question, is that true? Why would that be? And what might that mean? Because it's going to affect everyone. I was about to say, if it happens, it will. It's only really a question of when. So let's start there. Capitalist economic systems crash. We have so many words for it: downturn, recession, depression, crisis, collapse, meltdown. I could go on and on. And you know why we have all those words? Because it keeps happening. Wherever capitalism as a system has settled, and that has been the whole world over the last 300 years, wherever it is, on the average, every 4 to 7 years, boom, down it goes. Suddenly, large numbers of people lose their job. Large numbers of businesses go bankrupt, go belly up. Many more cut back, lay off workers, hold back on orders. It's a real mess. Not only do people lose their jobs, but of course, if they lose the jobs and if the businesses go out, the taxes that the government gets from individuals and businesses, those dry up too. So just as the private sector, business and workers, are in trouble, the government, which is supposed to help them, is short of money and often doesn't do much for them, except if it's a real doozy of a depression. And that, by the way, a depression, that's just a recession that keeps getting worse. Well, we call it a depression because it's a sign of how bad it is. So then why are people talking about a recession? Well, if it happens on average every 5 to 7 years, every 4 to 7 years, when is the last one we had? Well, the answer is the year 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. We had a terrible recession. And how long ago is that? 5 years, which is right in that 5 to 7 average. Now, an average is just that, doesn't have to happen in that interval, but that's when you would expect it because we've had them every 4 to 7 years on average for the last couple of centuries here in the United States. So a betting person would have to bet, yeah, we're going to get it. It's just exactly a question of when we don't get it. Well, then, why do we get it? And the answer there is a lesson in capitalism. When working people get money, they spend it. In other words, they spend pretty much what they get. Are there a few working class people who actually save money? Yes. But they're completely offset by the working class people who borrow, usually with their credit card, and spend more than they get, racking up debt. So the extra spenders cancel out the savers. You can think of it that part of the working class saves and then lends that money through the banks and the credit cards to those who spend more than their earnings, as so many of us do. But here's the good news about that. If the money we all earn is turned around and spent, it's spent on the goods and services that we all help to produce. Our income is the other person's spending, and our spending is the other person's income. When you buy a latte at the coffee shop, it's income for the coffee shop. When they pay their workers, it's income for the worker. When the worker buys a blouse, it's income for the store that sells the blouse. The money goes around, and we're glad it does because that's how we earn our income. Things are completely different with business. Business earns a profit. What does it do? Well, some businesses save that money. They think we have better conditions in the future. We don't like the way the market looks right now. This is not about our personal income. That's something, it's the business that earns the profit. Now, if things are good, the business will take its profit, plow them back into the business, grow the business, hire more workers, buy more inputs, expand the factory, add a wing to the office, whatever. And then that money gets spent. Just like workers spend their money, businesses can choose to spend their money. But unfortunately, if they are free private enterprises, they can also choose not to invest their money, to hold it back. If they do, then the people who expected to have that profit spent on them will be frustrated. It won't be spent on them. They won't get an income. And if they don't, they in turn will cut back their spending, which is the income of yet other people. Uh-oh. Recessions happen, here we go, when the business community decides to hold back portions of its profits, not invest, and wait for better conditions. Well, now you know why I titled my talk today, Recession, question mark. One of the consequences of President Trump's tariffs is to create among the business classes of the whole world, US and everywhere else, enormous uncertainty. Will the tariff stay? Will it go up? Will it go down? Will that happen in 10 years or in 5 years or in 5 weeks or in 5 days? With Mr. Trump telling us he's going to negotiate with all the countries he hit with a tariff, we're talking about 100 negotiations, all with different countries in different ways, hitting different snags, being undone. This is chaos. And that's what you got. That's why the stock market is falling apart. Nobody knows where to put the money, what's going to happen, whose business is going to be affected, how badly. But before we even figure any of that out, we already have the first effect. The business community knows, because it's been here before. If there's uncertainty, in this case, because of a remarkable government, then we hold back, and then we help to bring on the very recession we don't want. It's another peculiarity of capitalism. Everybody hates recessions. Nobody wants recessions, and we have one every 4 to 7 years. Strike you as a system with a problem? Good, you've understood it. We face a recession now. And by the way, with the tariffs, which will likely push up the prices of things, because that's what a tariff is. It's a tax. So you got to pay for the object that comes in from abroad, plus give Uncle Sam the tariff tax on top of it. So we might have rising prices and inflation and a recession at the same time. And that's called a stagflation. And you'll see reports in the newspapers about stagnant economy, that's a recession, and inflation, and it's combined to make a stagflation. Here's the bottom line. Capitalism is an unstable system. Mr. Trump is reacting to the instability of capitalism when he thinks the United States needs a better situation, which it does, and he's going to get one at the world's expense. That's not going to likely work out real well. The rest of the world is not going to sit by and help the United States at its own expense. We wouldn't take all that kindly if they asked us. They're not going to take it kindly as we press them to do it. So the instability is our problem. And the effort of Mr. Trump is a desperate effort to muscle your way to get us through this bad instability moment. Is it possible that what he's doing will work? Yes, it's possible. Long shot, low odds, but it's possible. You know what's much more likely? That it won't work, and that we will be looking back on Mr. Trump the way we look back on the 10, 20 years before him, during which every president, Clintons, Bushes, Obamas, all of them, all of them promised to bring manufacturing back to America. None of them did it. None of them achieved it. Mr. Trump is going further, taking bigger risks, angering more and more of the world, which could come back to haunt us. Will it be enough? I don't think so. Will it avoid recession? Absolutely not. It's only a question of when. And if that sounds horrible, and if it sounds horrible that we are so unstable that we have them every 4 to 7 years to disrupt our lives, then understand your problem with that is a problem with the capitalist system. You don't deal with the system, you will not solve the problem. The last 300 years prove it. If interventions like this strike you as useful, please share them with your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors. That's why we produce them. And of course, if you can help us defray the costs of doing this, that would be enormously appreciated as well. Thank you.